Sound of Freedom has now made, I think, $173 million at the box office. And it's been a while since it came out, but all of the media is still just relentlessly kvetching about the ties it supposedly has to QAnon conspiracy theories and adrenochrome and Alex Jones. Just run down the list of all of the buzzwords that you want to call it. And they recently did an interview with the director, Alejandro Monteverde, and he admitted basically that he thinks Jim Caviezel's comments have hurt the film.
What did he say?
He was asked, given that the film got caught in culture war crosshairs, do you have any regrets about casting Jim Caviezel, who, if you didn't know, is the protagonist playing Tim Ballard in the movie? He replied, I try to never look back into any regrets because there's nothing I can do about it now. Jim came to the set. I've never seen somebody so committed and so professional on set. He came in and really bled for the film to the point, and then they cut him off. And they asked, what was he like on set? And he said Jim was at the level of going to a hospital one day. He was
before
really
we read that,
sick.
there's a $20 one there from Francisco Sanchez Jr. We'll get right back on topic.
He said, there are only two versions of Brett that are real, hat-wearing Brett and dark-haired Brett. Is this MF real? Sorry, I'm late.
Well, you'll have to ask Tiffany Gomez someday.
Is this MF real?
If he's real. Just to check, I'm just saying.
He said he was really sick, but I didn't have a contingency. If I didn't shoot that day, we'll lose the location. So I went to Jim and I'm like, Jim, we need to shoot this. He comes out with a bucket. The bucket was not in the scene. He was throwing up for real.
Because
he
he's
could barely
dedicated.
walk. So I say, I want to rewrite it like you're hungover. And he can only give me one, maximum 2 takes. I respect that as a director, to have an actor who is just going to die for the part. What are they going to do after? Everybody's entitled to speak their mind. Now, on this particular film, yes, it did hurt my work. And that's why I'm here talking now instead of secluding myself. It's time for me, the author, the writer, and the director to say what was the motive of the film.
Here's the thing. I think he might actually be right. It hurt him, but it did not hurt the movie. It helped the movie, but now what he's got to be worried about is he going to be typecast as some right-wing director when that's not who he is?
Wasn't he involved in Parasite in 2019?
Was he? No, he was involved in something else before that. But like,
I'm not sure.
The point is like he's now got to deal with that label.
For his own career implications. But Jim Caviezel and Tim Ballard being public figures promoting this movie had everything to do with it having its continued success and having good weekends over and over again that a lot of people wouldn't have expected, especially because the media hates it and doesn't want to talk about it unless it's to shit on it.
Just like Joker, the media did have to work for this film.
And I believe this guy that he's probably an apolitical person and sees this as an issue that everyone on every part of the political spectrum should be able to unite on and care about. But he found out the hard way that that's not how it works now. And when he found out that the media was saying all this stuff like it's a QAnon fantasy, and it's spreading conspiracies about adrenochrome and somehow being Epstein Island
and being
blah,
against
blah, blah.
Being against child trafficking is now an inherently right-wing issue because people are insane.
Yes. So here is another quote. He said, "There's people that are too close to the film that are in politics." And he said, "I love you, but I have to keep my distance." And this is probably because Tim Ballard attended a Donald Trump private screening of the movie at the White House.
The best movie.
Or sorry, not at the White House, at Mar-a-Lago. And it's like, I just don't understand why this even needs to be spoken on when actors and actresses in mainstream movies that have way more funding, they go to the White House Correspondents' Dinner, they schmooze with politicians all the time. They make political statements all the time, sometimes statements that are absolutely ludicrous and unhinged, and no one needs to make any qualifications for why they're associated with them.
Correct. It's also funny because, what it reminded me of? We decided not to cover it the other day. So he's basically saying that, look, I'm divorcing myself of these comments that he's made. But it made me think of Jodie Sweetin, who just had a movie sold to Great American Family, even though she's a very big advocate for LGBTQIA plus AA, whatever. Two spirits, right? Like, she's a very big supporter of LGBTQ groups and advocacy. And she just had a movie that she shot a couple years ago, an independent film, film that was sold to Great American Family, which didn't even say they wouldn't do it, that they wouldn't make those movies. They just said they're not doing it right now, and that Candace Cameron Bure has just gotten a bad publicity because she supports traditional values and seems to be
she's happy and
a Christian mom.
That's pretty much it.
Which and she basically said, I was very unhappy that this movie got sold, and now she's giving any future money she makes off the movie to LGBTQ charities because she's an activist first and an actress second.
Yeah.
It's like, you don't really have a choice. Once the movie's out there, you don't have control over who it gets sold to or what your coworkers are going to say.
This just doesn't, from the director, I'm not saying he's not trying his best to, I don't know, play to both sides, but it sounds ungrateful. Like, Jim Caviezel didn't have to take this project, but like Tim Ballard felt like he was the only person who could play this role, and he graciously took the role and he did it really well, and he promoted the movie like hell when all odds were against the film, and everybody in the establishment of Hollywood wanted it to fail.
And people went to see this movie.
And it just sounds ungrateful to then go to the interview after you've stayed silent for this long and say, yeah, Jim Caviezel hurt the film. Like, if I read that in Jim Caviezel's position, I'd be like, screw you. Like, I did a great job in the film and after the film, and he's a huge reason why it's successful, period. You can't deny that. You can't argue with that. It's true. It's Tim Ballard too.
Yeah.
Even though Tim Ballard, wasn't in the movie, he didn't have to promote it.
Yeah. What's interesting is there's a $20 super chat there from Disco Jensen with no message. Thank you. Disco Jensen. One of the things the media was doing early on was saying that the only reason people were going to see this movie is because of the pay it forward aspect of it, meaning that you could buy tickets for other people. They said only 4 to 7%.
Something under 10%
came from that part of the program. So people went out to see this movie on its own, and it hasn't had its international release yet. We're still going to get that. And I'll tell you what, they put money into marketing after the fact. I could tell because ads kept showing up on stuff well after the movie came out because they understood that this was a movie that was going to have legs. And it has. It made another $4.8 million last weekend, and Dial of Dysentery only made $900,000. That's my favorite of all of them. There was a lot of dial of various bodily functions you don't want to think about that were all gross. But like the movie wouldn't, they're correct. The movie would not have reached the levels of success it had if it wasn't for Jim Caviezel, who seems to be one of those people who gives everything to his projects and his work, right? Like he got
I mean, if he's literally getting sick on set like this, it's sort of a literal Passion of the Christ slice of life story. That he is this invested in the story, and you're gonna go to the press and it's essentially kind of trashing him. It's kind of insulting him.
Yeah. Well,
in a backhanded way. Like,
he's done it for years with all sorts.
You knew who you were hiring. You knew who you were working with. This is somebody who already was ghettoized in Hollywood. Yep. Like, what did you expect?
And it's still what makes me wonder if the Nolan brothers are secretly based because they hired Jim Caviezel for Person of Interest in 2011 when he was already technically kind of...
Maybe not secretly based, but I mean secretly indifferent.
Yeah.
Not so secretly indifferent, which is cooler.
Like, I like that idea because it was like, I watched that show. Remember, like I've said 1,000 times, my favorite show of all time. And it kind of makes me sad to think like this guy is going to miss out on working with tons of talented actors and actresses because people can't just agree to disagree. It's almost like they don't like the same song and everyone's telling them they're wrong. And it's like they just won't allow people to agree to disagree.
So the guy went a little bit too far with denouncing trafficking of children. I think there are worse things that you could do.
Well, I mean, he was already like that because of his religious convictions, right? So they were already still somewhat saw him that way.
It was ridiculous for the media to put out all these articles saying that, it's a QAnon tinged thriller. It's a fantasy film for QAnon boomers, blah, blah, blah. But it's even more ridiculous to like pull this guy into an interview where he has to answer for that. Because you're not asking about his work. You're asking about other people's opinions about his work.
Also, they do bring up the faith-based part of it. Like, which is a fair critique that it should have never been labeled as faith-based.
Right. He said, I believe labels such as faith-based exclude people, and my intention as a filmmaker is never to exclude, but to include everyone, all audiences. We made Sound of Freedom for people of faith, people without faith, and everyone in between. And the characters featured in the movie are all of those people.
Exactly.
Like, everyone got represented. You're all happy in your high chairs. You got what you wanted. Okay. It's like, here comes the representation.
Did you?
Are you happy now? Because you got what you wanted, right?
Have you seen the meme that's been going around? It says, like, it's September 12th, 2001. Your child won't eat. Do you do the here comes the plane thing?
What other option do you have?
Oh, that's a rough one right there, man. That's a rough one. Also, they're also talking about a sequel. They're talking about doing a like an origin story for the film for Tim Ballard.
Well, they were asked, like, are you planning on making a sequel?
Yeah.
And he said there definitely is a lot of interest to exploring this subject deeper because this is just the tip of the iceberg. There's a lot of interest to kind of explore Haiti, what's happening in Haiti. There's a sequel talk focusing on Haiti, and I guess this was part of Tim Ballard's work, so there would be actual story to base it on.
Yeah.
But, like, I don't like that every time a movie does well, the question before it's even out of theaters is when's the sequel, because it just shows how short our attention spans are and how little faith we have in
Dust in the Wind
a movie speaking for itself.
Dust in the Wind says Tim Ballard joins the Expendables. Yes!
It's going to be a Sound of Freedom cinematic universe. Again, doesn't treat the subject matter with the seriousness it deserves, period. It doesn't. It's disrespectful.
I would be okay with a sequel if it was based on a real story that was grounded in reality, because otherwise then you're turning him into a fictional character if it goes too far off the beaten path, right? And it won't carry the same gravity.
Right. People already discredit what was in the first, the existing movie.
Yeah.
People are already coming up with, ways to supposedly debunk what was in the movie. And they admitted to which parts were written in and which parts were true.
Yeah. Yep.
So
I just think it's a bummer because for somebody like Caviezel, who's as talented as he is, to have been kind of pigeonholed. And the sad fact is, I think actors like Zachary Levi have to worry that this is what's going to happen to them, right? Like him more so because he keeps saying stuff that angers people in Hollywood, right? And he's religious. Like, you have to worry about that. If you're allowed to be religious, Mary, but you're only allowed to do so when you're accepting an award. That's when you're allowed to be religious. You're allowed to thank God when you accept an award, and at no other time.
By the way, do you think that Sound of Freedom is going to receive any awards? Any of the performances going to be recognized? Nothing at all.
No.
Okay.
If they didn't even give Yellowstone award nominations, they ain't giving this movie award nominations.
Do you think that was political enough that they
I don't know.
specifically snubbed Yellowstone for that reason?
If I was them, I would look at it as a honor to not be nominated. Screw that. Thank you guys. Thank you guys so much. I don't see them getting any awards for any of this. I don't think that's happening. Nor should they look at it as anything lost, right? What does that do for them?
No, it doesn't.
I guess you could say that it increases their ability to market future projects, but they seem to have found a way to do that anyway.
Award season is about chasing a feeling of credibility from
an industry where, like, the most of the people in this space crave the perceived legitimacy of Hollywood.
Yeah.
When you don't need to do that. Just like look at what the Young Rip is doing, right? Make your own stuff. What Eric July is doing. Make your own stuff. You do not need the legitimacy of Hollywood or, for him, the comic book industry. Just make your own stuff and make it well. Mm-hmm. And that's fine. I guess this stuff also kind of happened with some of the actors who got hired on the movies that the Daily Wire bought. Like, they were like asked to, like, what's your opinion on being part of an alt-right movie company? And they're like, bro, I was just in the movie.
Once you were in the movie, you kind of have to just let it be what it is.
Yep. Thanks for watching. Listen to full episodes of Pop Culture Crisis on Spotify.
Keep up with us on social media and make sure you subscribe and ring that bell so you never miss the show. Bye, guys.